opportunity at the moment, though, to actually bring together a couple of threads. And in particular, I think what we've heard from all the speakers and also from Carlos is about certainly the great work that Jen has done so far in a collaborative manner, globally, regionally, locally. We understand better what the challenges are. We also know that through the work led by Margareta Wallström, that we will have a new international agreement that will involve at least 168 countries. I'm not sure what the count is, but that's how many signed the last agreement. We know that there is a very strong desire and interest in having science, in having better tools, in having better understanding of risk. So I'd first like to ask Carlos if you could perhaps tell us what you think this new international agreement, the demand that we now see, how can Jen perhaps leverage this opportunity and really, I suppose, realize its vision, its dream in the long term. And then I'll ask Margareta a similar question. Since you misbehaved and asked any questions previously, you'll have to wait.
I have always felt that there is this gap between the science and the decision makers. And the moment that we start addressing this seriously, bringing the people together and facilitating, creating tools, I think we will maybe starting to close that gap. There have been several examples about Nepal here, and it's a place that is very close to my heart also because we work there a lot. And I remember that I went, one of my first visits, to visit the University of Kathmandu and the Faculty of Civil Engineering. And they were studying reinforced concrete and pre-stressed concrete and steel structures and publishing papers in international journals. And you go out from the university and 95% of the structures are unreinforced masonry, which was not being taught at the university. And to me that was, science without seeing the society around is of no value. We have to produce results and solutions for them. And we found that 95% of the structures there were built not by engineers, but by masons. And we started a program to train masons. But this is the kind of thing, we need to bridge this gap. We need to bring knowledge and science to the service of the society and see an impact there. So this is what we are trying to do.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Margareta, I'd like to ask you if you could, now that you've had a bit more exposure to Jen, you've seen the sorts of things we're trying to do, you understand the issues with data sharing, data access, openness of models and tools.
But first I want to say that I'm very encouraged by what I've seen. I, in fact, even understand a lot of it, particularly the latter two pieces. But, so I think the way you will contribute, and maybe with what Ross just said, that there is something to explore around the ownership of models here. I'm going to say something really terrible now, but I will explain why. So when I started looking into these issues, when I started with ISDR, I had a feeling that disasters are not taken seriously. They're taken seriously, of course, as a humanitarian issue, but they were not really taken seriously in most places in the world as a political catastrophe and economic catastrophe, etc. And I think that is linked to how science sees disasters. And my second indication of that there was something odd here was when the IPCC report on extreme events was being worked on, and I learned that there is something called grey literature, which I was not familiar with before, which is the type of literature that people like Amos ourselves produce, that is not scientific until it's been going through a laundry machine and been written. So in the context of contributing to the IPCC report, we actually, together with the Science Institution, trained a lot of young scientists to learn how to write literature that would be acceptable in the science community. For me, this was an indication that this huge knowledge about disasters and their impact was lodged in the community that were really linked with the real science, so to say. So I think the positive message that I want to bring you, I think you have a huge opportunity because of the way that you have approached using your knowledge, what you are developing, is meeting that other community halfway, so to say. And that's why I asked you these questions, because I'm trying to think, how can we use the next agreement and how can we be supportive to the efforts to really bridge some of these barriers that still do exist on data sharing, etc., etc. So, if you just keep on track, and perhaps we can discuss more of that, but perhaps also feature, primarily depending on which audience you are, but primarily when you are with the user audience, there are some specific features here that I think you should start with, that will demonstrate that we are going into a completely new period now on how to use science and knowledge to inform decisions, but also how to spread the knowledge so that individuals can, in fact, having the choice of better informed decision making. And also make all this enormous wealth of disasters in the world white a little bit so that it also contributes to science.
Okay, thank you very much, Margareta. So it's very reassuring to know that from your knowledge base now, that we are on the right track. We have a common understanding of some of the real issues. I'd certainly like to take an opportunity for questions now. I'll venture in that space again. Would someone like to ask a question? Excellent. Omar, bring the man a microphone.
Thank you for Carlos and also for you, John. In the last 20 years, we have seen different projects related with seismic risk evaluation and reduction. To name some of them, the Radius project with JICA, Carlos Basketball, the CREEP project, I remember a project with geohazards in Quito also more than 20 years ago. What are the differences? What are the differences between these similar initiatives with the same discourse and this initiative, particularly for Carlos? What are your expectations, taking into account the regional programs? Due to it's necessary, of course, in all cases we have been trying to involve the stakeholders, local authorities, the transfer of technology, training, how we can expect different results with this initiative.
Thank you, Omar. And, as you say, there have been many years that we have been working together and going from things, seeing sometimes good results, seeing sometimes not so good results. For instance, we are doing now the risk assessment of Quito 20 years after we did that one in 1992. And in the meantime, Quito has grown the population twice, it's twice now, And the area, because it became metropolitan, it's I think 10 times the area covered by the city. And in 20 years, nothing happened. Nobody updated the study. And they were saying that they had already a study that didn't reflect any more the reality of the city. So we are starting, and it's a slow work of demonstrating and changing the way people see other things. You know, learning ourselves. Before we used to say most of the time, we have to teach the decision maker, we have to tell them. I see that it's the opposite. We have to learn from them. We have to learn what their priorities are. We have to learn how they work. We have to learn what's important in their agenda. And in that sense, I think that in the last years, there has been a lot of progress in introducing this disaster risk reduction in the political agenda. And this is something that has been led very strongly by the ISDR with their advocacy role, and it has been incredible. You know, we were together in the Yokohama meeting in 1994. You know, it was a big meeting, but it was mostly, the technical people as always. You know, the same community, the same faces talking about the same things. We are now in Sendai talking about probably 10,000, is what Margareta said, but 10,000 decision makers and ministers and presidents and vice presidents. I think that is what is making me hopeful that things are changing. Probably the discourses are the same. Probably the knowledge is better. Now we have made progress, we have better tools, but I think the reception or the opportunity, the probability of succeed is higher now. I hope that we are progressing in that thing. And in that sense, we depend very much on work like the one you are doing. It's not about the technical thing. Many of the technical things were already there many years ago. The thing is having this accepted by the society and giving the proper place. Disaster is not the most important. We would like to think that. It's not the most important, but it has a place in the political agenda of our country, in the annual budget, in the national plan. We have to make sure that that is there. And we are making progress on that. That was not the situation 20 years ago. So I think that's the main difference.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent. And I'd just like to add one comment on that. Clearly, we need to inform and bring the broader community to understand risk. But it's also about what Jen can also do and is doing is developing information and tools that are also informing risk reduction. So we have cost-benefit analysis, we have social vulnerability, resilience tools. We are, and this is an extremely important part of the process, other organizations doing the same. We're going beyond understanding risk to understanding what's required for risk reduction and having the conversation and having the tools and the people meeting at the middle ground instead of talking from different points of view. Okay, so now I'd like to first ask everyone to thank our speakers for a very extremely interesting and important morning session.